Hello people! Did you see our first episode? Probably you didn't. If you did, you were on the very small group who actually saw this. The feedback was like, do it better. Our answers were too blurry. So this time we took a totally different point. Now we're looking into a project and we're discussing why is that project created the way it is created, what are some of the basic components, what were the decisions behind Mika, right?
Yeah, and we posted the question on the forum, and there were a couple of people who asked specifically for some explanation on collection proxies. So we're going to look roughly on like the overall structure of the project and then dive in a little bit more deeply into proxies. And I guess that we can do another one on this project later on with
if you
want.
Say so.
Yeah, and dive into something else.
Yeah. So does it sound interesting? I mean, you ask for it, so like you cannot say it's not interesting right now. Cool. Let's remind who we are. I'm Oleg, known as Evangelist on the forums and pretty much everywhere else beyond the forums, I guess. And you're Mika.
Yes, I work as a designer and developer and technical writer and some other things in the Defold team.
And you're known as teacher on the forums.
Yes, I am.
Good. So you know who we are and you know how we look. Now let's dive into what we're showing today. You have color slide tutorial open on the screen.
Yeah, maybe we should just tell people how to get hold of this tutorial if you want to look at it yourself.
So this one is published, right? It's not something...
Yeah. So I'm going to show you that it's really simple to get hold of it. The only thing you need to do is to start Defold and then select new project, and then from tutorial, and there is down here is the color slide tutorial, and you just name it and do create new project. That's it. And it's downloading from GitHub. The whole project is on GitHub if you want to clone it or play with it.
On default GitHub, you mean? Like you go to GitHub, type default, find default account, and you get it there.
Yep.
And this window is just like a magic view into that GitHub.
So you get a local copy of all the files. So the project in the root folder, you have a README file that automatically opens that contains the tutorial that you can go through.
But that's not what we're doing today.
No, we're not going to do that. I'm just going to show you quickly what's in the project. There's also an assets folder that contains all the images for all these.
For the tutorial to be complete.
Yeah, exactly. These graphical elements and all that. There's a font. There's the doc folder contains images for the tutorial text, so you can safely ignore that. There's some basic input setup, and then the whole project really sits in the main folder. So I'm going to start by just building this and running it, so you can see what we have here. It's a very simple puzzle game. The goal of the game is to get all these guys into the right slot, onto the right color. So the yellow ones should be here. So I can do that, and I can only move one at a time and slide it into place. So I click on a guy, and he will move like this, and you see that they get happy if they are on the right color, and this one is still pretty grumpy. So I'm gonna do that, and then they jump and are happy. So that's it. Yeah,
that's what you get when you download that.
Yeah, exactly.
And what are we doing today?
If we look at what's actually inside the project, we see that there are more than one level. You see that when the main collection here shows the level that we just looked at.
That's what loads when you load the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Currently.
And you can see that this one points to a file called level 2 collection, which sits here. So we can open that. it's just the same stuff here. So this is what's gonna go into the game. But there's also a couple of other levels in the project. Here's level 1, and here is level 3, and there's a level 4 as well, in increasing difficulty. I'm not going to go into detail about what's actually inside each of these.
Because you've read tutorials, right? You've read tutorials, you've seen what's that. We don't need to explain that. We're explaining just like the architecture kind of.
Exactly. So what we are, what's happening when, I'm going to show you a little bit. There you go. So, okay, you have the main collection. This is just a file that sits on your disk. And in that collection you have stuff like maybe you have a couple of game objects. So here's a game object, and let's call that mine. And when the game starts, we have this big chunk of memory and the whole computer and all that. The whole engine runtime starts up, and what happens is that it's going to bootstrap from somewhere. And in the project settings, there's you point out a specific collection that is your bootstrap collection. So, and usually it's called main collection, but you can name it whatever you want. And what happens is that this is going to be pulled into the engine, and all the content, this guy is going to be built in the
somewhere.
Yeah, in the runtime.
And just like the reason why you're showing that is that Defold is a static engine. So whatever you create in the editor, when the game loads, the runtime gonna pre-allocate the whole thingy.
Yes.
Whatever you have on main, right?
Yeah, exactly. So because you have set this up statically, and you have in the game project settings, you have the bootstrap, and this one points to this file. When the engine builds the sort of game compiler builds it, it knows that it's going to start here and pull this in, and then the game pre-allocates a number of slots for game objects. So, for example, by default you may have set up that you need 5,000 game objects or something like that, and then this one gonna occupy one of those slots. So that's pretty much it. What happens though is that in our game we have a main collection, and it's the first level, and then we have so here is like level 1, or it was actually level 2 that we started with. So and this is the second level, and if we look again in wrong direction here, we can see if we look in the main collection, we see that the collection contains the level 2 collection. So there's a collection inside the collection. So what's going to happen here
is that prefabs.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
Sort of.
So we have the main, which is this, and the level 2, and when you start, this is going to be pulled into the engine. So how could we get additional levels into the game? One way of doing that would be to simply add, let's add another collection. Let's take level 1 as well.
Yeah, but let's like kind of outline what we're solving now. What is the problem that we're solving?
We're trying to make it possible for a player to play more than one level.
To switch levels pretty much.
Switch levels, exactly.
And we're looking to the most efficient solution to architect level switching in the game.
Yeah. So one way of doing it is to have all the levels in their separate collections, and add all the collections to the main collection.
And then just ship the cover.
Yeah, or well, you're gonna run into some problems because like right now the logic doesn't really work with this setup. But you can see that it's actually here, but there is no the logic doesn't work.
Yeah.
So this is one way of doing it. And if you have smaller amounts of levels, like a set amount of stuff, you can do this very well. And just make sure that you shift the camera or do whatever you want. So that's one way of doing it.
Like put all to one single collection and then just like move camera along that way.
Yeah, or perhaps have everything on top of each other and just disable, enable and disable things. You can do that as well. That's going to be a bit tricky, because what happens here, again, we have this is like the tile map for the level. So let's call this tile map. So and there's also all these little when you run the game, these guys are actually sprites that are animated. These are not tiles anymore, which makes it possible to animate them and slide them nicely like that. So what we do have is are a number of sprites here. Like, okay, you have all these game objects here, and then maybe you have the second level down here with all the game objects. And we know, if you know a little bit about addressing in Defold, you know that if you have a script here, it can address these guys by just ID. So if this guy is called game object 1, this guy can say, I want to talk to game object 1. But if there's a game object 1 down here, he can talk with that guy by that name. So when everything is instantiated in the engine, in order to solve that, all these game objects are gonna get a name that actually includes the path. So this one is going to be called level 2/GO, and this guy down here is going to be like level 2/GO here, and there's also going to be a level
3, 4, 5,
yeah, and level
10.
2/GO2 and 3 and 4 and so forth. And this naming scheme allows everything to be able to talk to each other. But what it doesn't allow you is to say that, okay, I'm going to disable all of level 2. I can't do that, because these are just names. So there is no such thing as a collection in the runtime.
Right, because can you please switch to the editor?
Yeah.
So like we have level 1 collection and then level collection, level 1 and level 2 collection. So all the game objects under these collections, they get on the runtime, they're gonna be collapsed into a single memory pile.
Yeah, exactly. And the difference between them is going to sit in the naming, which allows us to address them.
Yeah.
So if you want to have like all these guys on top of all these collections on top of each other, enable and disable them, it's going to be a bit tricky to do that.
Yeah, like keeping arrays or something.
Yeah, something like that. If you spawn things dynamically, maybe you can use that. But there are better ways of doing it. Yes.
We went through we started by showing how to not do stuff.
Yeah. So let's look again at, because there is a way of handling large amounts of stuff. So let's talk about what really happens in the engine when you start. You have a bootstrap main collection and it's going to be pulled in. And what happens is that the engine creates a world.
World? What is world?
A world is sort of conceptually it's sort of a space where all the game objects can live.
Okay.
So all the game objects from main is going to live in the main world here. And this world has a unique physics world as well. So objects, physics collisions objects that are inside this world can collide with each other. However, it is possible to create additional worlds. So I can create another world.
We're going multi-dimensions.
Yes. And this has a cost, of course. Let's see, I'm going to call this level 2 or something. This world.
Okay.
And I can set this up so that when I can tell the engine to take a particular collection. Let's call this level 2 collection.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell the engine to take everything that's inside here
Yeah.
and instantiate that
Mm-hmm.
here and run it in a separate
World.
Yeah.
Okay. Those would be just two memory piles that don't know
Yeah.
anything about each other.
Sort of. So it's going to take more memory to do this, and we cannot have physics interaction
Mm-hmm.
between them because they are totally separate.
Yeah.
But for things like levels and bigger chunks of stuff, this is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And what's more, I can actually shut down a level. I can start it up and I can shut it down.
Okay.
At will, which means that I can
like the whole, all the hierarchy, all the game object,
yeah,
like the whole
everything.
piece of memory just boom.
Either I can throw it out, or I can just disable it and say
Mm-hmm.
that okay, I don't want to see this. I don't want to run this anymore.
Okay, cool.
I can even set a time step in this one, so I run the whole simulation, the whole game simulation, in a different time step than here. So I can make this go in slow motion if I want to do
That's
that,
cool.
for example. It's pretty cool. And what do I use to make this happen? It's something that we call a collection proxy.
Mm-hmm.
And a collection proxy is a component. It's a small little component that I add to here, and I point it to a level collection, and I send messages to it, and then it will do this. I shouldn't have.
I like your graphical depiction
Yeah.
of a small level component.
It's actually gonna sit. It has to sit in a
world.
In a world that is actually in
okay,
the
in the
game.
Bootstrap world.
Yeah. All right. So let's try to build that and see how that works. So let's start by let's remove this collection here. So I'm gonna remove the collection from main, and I'm gonna create a. Let's see how we're gonna go about this. We have. Oh, we're not gonna use that. We're gonna. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna create a game object here. Let's call this guy loader or something.
Mm-hmm. We're trying to build a kind of builder. What's that? What we're doing?
What we're doing. Let's draw here what I'm actually doing.
Like a screen manager, level manager.
Yeah, it could turn into that. So I'm gonna start with a single game object here with a component,
mm-hmm.
and this guy points to another. This is main.
The sponge component.
Yeah, and this is gonna point to level 1,
mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna when everything is loaded and it's run into the game, I'm gonna tell this guy to instantiate a new world
mm-hmm.
based on this collection. And load it up, initiate it, and enable it.
Okay,
and
so
then shut it down, and then we can add more of these and say that this is going to point to level 2,
mm-hmm.
and this is going to point to level 3.
Okay, so on the game startup, the engine gonna like allocate a set of memory to accommodate any of those 3 because like the engine knows, right?
Some of this is going to be allocated dynamically because when this takes a little while. It's not. So it depends on how big your collections are.
Mm-hmm.
But you can do a synchronous loading of these if you want
mm-hmm.
to, so you can have stuff going on
at
the same time.
So collection proxy actually can allocate memory dynamically on the runtime.
Yeah, I think I haven't dived into the source code of this. I'm not exactly sure how the technical.
We'll return to this next time.
Yeah, let's bring someone else into this room and to explain the technical side of this. Right. So let's go back here. We have a loader. Let's call it loader, a game object, and then we're gonna add a component. And let's pick a collection proxy. And we're gonna start with, let's do level 1. And that's pretty much it for now. And then we're gonna create a script. Let's see, there you go, script. Let's call this loader as well. Okay, just to illustrate, we're not gonna build the whole thing, but just enough for us to understand how this is working. I'm gonna do one thing more. I'm gonna add this script as a component to. There you go. So now we have. So if I'm correct, we can just try and see that this script is running. Yeah, it says hello down.
Basically, so what you've done, you took the scene, the collection that loads when the game loads. You put there like a component and a script. The component, the proxy component, does nothing for a moment.
Yes.
And the script prints whatever it prints.
Yeah, it printed hello. I just removed it. But what we're doing is setting up all these static relations between the main collection and the ones that we want to use. Right. So how do we load a collection through proxy? We do that by posting a message to the proxy, and since we are in the same game object, I can just reference the component by name.
Yeah. So we're talking to the same component pretty much.
Yeah. Let's call this level 1 proxy, and the message we're gonna send it's called load. Oops. And that's it. This has the wrong name, so we call it level 1 proxy, right? Here we go, and let's save that as well. Okay. All right. So what happened here is that we don't see anything, and that's expected. But what's not expected is that we get an error in the printout here. The collection default could not be created since there is already a socket with the same name. What happens is that in the engine, these worlds that we do have here in the runtime, we need a way to address those as well.
And we do it by name, let me guess.
Yes, we do it by name, and that name has to be set somewhere. And there's a name collision currently, and we can look at why there is a collision. Let's mark the main collection. It has, if we click here, I can see that this is the name that's going to be used for that world. So let's call this main instead. And let's go to a level 1 collection and call this level 1, and then run it. And now we don't get the error. We still don't see anything, but the lack of error now tells us that the proxy has actually loaded the world into the game. So we do have the main here, and we do have the level 1 here, but we need to do something in order to get it to work. And what happens is that when the proxy has finished loading, it will send us a message back. So we can add a function that's called OnMessage, and let's we can use that. Here we go, and we can test for that message. If we can actually print the message. Oops, I don't want to ask Siri anything.
What to print?
Yeah, we can ask her about. Let's see. Okay, so it loads, and then we get the message back here. It's called proxy loaded, and so we can test for that. If message ID, and it's going to be hashed value like everything.
Yeah, proxy loaded.
Proxy loaded. Then, so we're going to do something when the proxy has loaded, and we're going to send it 2 more messages, and we can send it to sender, because these messages are coming from the
sender.
Yeah, the sender is going to be the
one of the parameters, like you can get.
Yeah, it's a parameter that we get. Who is sending this message, and it's going to be the proxy component that sends this message to us. So we can just use that as a target for the next message, and we're going to send it an init message, which gonna call all the init functions in all the scripts and initialize all the game object.
Level 1.
Yeah, here inside here, and then we're gonna post a second message that's enable.
Right, so you're following what's happening, right? So what Mickey did, like Mickey told that proxy component to load whatever it loads. Then Mickey figured out, okay, what does the component send? Okay, that's the message, we test for that message, and then we send back the commands, like to init and then to load things.
Yeah, so I can just really quickly draw what's happening here. So we have the main collection, there's our loader here with the proxy, and we send a message to the proxy that says load, and then it will pull in the level collection and create a new world with the name level 1 that we set. So this is going to be pulled in, all the game objects going to be there and everything.
But we won't see that.
We won't see that yet, but when this is done, we're gonna get the message back here.
Yeah.
That said, okay, we're done. Proxy is loaded. Yeah. So everything, we get the proxy loaded message back, and then we can react to that message by sending the init and enable. Oh, that's ugly as hell, but and then everything should run. This we can just look at. Let's see that it works. Yeah, there you go. This is level 1, and now we can hopefully.
Can you show the init function that got run in this particular case? So it will be level 1, right?
Yeah, this
collection.
Yeah, let's see.
And then script.
We have a level script. This is the script. So this is going to be run for, and it will.
Is there an init function?
Here's an init function.
Yeah, so that's what gets run when you like ask the sender to run the init on whatever the sender did instantiate.
Exactly. And this whole thing about like load, init, enable, that happens automatically on the with the bootstrap collection, so we don't have to do anything. So the engine does that for us. And
the bootstrap collection is that the one that loads when you load the game. Yeah. And can you show the project settings just in case somebody actually missed that?
The project setting.
Bootstrap.
Here.
Yeah. Bootstrap. So that's the bootstrap collection.
So this is the one.
That's how you set it. That's how you pointed. Good.
And this is good for testing, actually. If I want to test a different collection, like easily I can just change this and run the game again.
Good. So where we are, what was the problem we were solving?
The problem we have solved now is that we have a loader. We can run here, we get level 1. If we want to change this into level 2, the only thing we have to do is to, we can duplicate this. So let's create another component, and it's going to be a collection proxy. Let's call this level 2 proxy.
Level 2.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it needs a unique name. And then point that to level 2 collection.
So let me guess, when you complete level 1, you'll want to load level 2.
Yeah. And now when we run, we have still load level 1, and we can change level by just altering this message. We send it to a different component.
This is still loader script, like that sits on the bootstrap collection.
Yeah, exactly. So and now now we see the benefit of sending back to sender, because if we had specified that, okay, we're gonna send this to level 1 proxy and then level 2 proxy, I can reuse the same script easily. Yeah. So I can just have like level 1, level 2, and have and instead of doing it like this, we could, for example, say that, okay, I'm gonna post this to and then do concatenation and say that, okay, I'm gonna have a parameter that's called load level, like that, and then I can set this. In reality, you wouldn't probably do it like this, but it's just to get the point. So now I can. Oh, sorry. What happened? Oh, equals 1.
And also
now I have
local.
level 1. Yeah, exactly.
It's important to keep stuff local.
Yeah.
Otherwise, have fun debugging.
Yeah. So now I can switch levels easily by just altering this variable. What we do have one problem left, that because I can't play this for some reason. When I click here, nothing happens.
Oh, because the input.
Yeah, we have an input problem, and if we look at the level script that is being included in all these level collection, if you look at the init function, we see that it actually acquires input focus here. So something fishy is going on, and I'm just quickly gonna explain quickly gonna explain how what happens. The thing is that if I have if I draw it like this, we have the game object here, loader. We have a proxy here, and it points to a collection. And this guy has been initialized and everything. Input is going to flow into the main collection.
Mm-hmm. Input, like that's the script or like the collection that catches the input from keyboard, mouse,
exactly,
touch.
Exactly. It's going to be sent to things in the main game world, and you can force it to trickle down. So what I want to do is I'm going to say that I want to forward it down here, redirect it, and that's very simple to do. The only thing I have to do is to tell this guy to acquire input as well. And then it will forward all input into the anything there. So that's the final step.
But there is a limit. Like the question, why wouldn't you just acquire input in all the scripts? Because there is a limit, and so you get like different fightings of like whatever
but
gets.
In this case, we're going to have two. So we're going to have one here and one down here. So it's not going to be a problem. Let's see. We have the loader script, and what we're going to do here is we're going to. It doesn't really. Just for the sake of argument, I'm going to put it down below. All of these things are asynchronous, so the order of posting doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to acquire input focus. Save, and now it should, now it works. So now I can play any level just by altering one variable.
So we've shown how to switch levels when you finished a level or something.
Yeah, and I can choose now to, if I want to build a GUI, for example, that allows me to click on a button, I can have that button press send a message to this script. So I just, maybe I want to do it like, I'm probably going to move this code somewhere, and I'm going to have like an else if message ID is gonna be like, let's call it switch level. Then I'm gonna, let's do it. I'm gonna show how to do, and we're gonna send it a parameter in the message. So there's gonna be a piece of message data with a level like that. And the way I can use this message now is to send at any point. I'm going to write it here just so we can see. Now I can, from wherever in the game, I can just do a message post, and I'm going to call main, and I'm going to call loader, and the loader script, I think it's also called loader.
Loader, yeah.
And then we're gonna send switch level, and then I'm gonna attach a piece of data, and that data is gonna be like the level, and then I'm gonna say 1, for example. So when I post this message,
message level, okay,
yeah,
right. So what you're trying to do is to enable functionality of switching levels from within the levels, pretty much.
Yeah, or from a GUI or what have you. You can have you play them in sequence, so when you're finished with one level, you just fire off a new message here.
Yeah.
What's important to remember though is that when I switch the level, I probably want to kill the current world. Yeah. And I can do that easily by just sending messages again to the proxy and say that I want to finalize. I send final and then disable.
And you do it as a separate message?
Yeah,
or?
yeah. So I can, if I want to switch.
Yeah.
I need to keep track of the current level somehow. So it's gonna be like something like this. So the receiver here, we need to store that current proxy or some, I don't know. And we set that when we get the new level, and then we send it final, and then we're also gonna send it.
Wait, so current proxy is a standard thing, right?
Yeah. No, current proxy is just something I dreamed up.
Okay.
And put in the self.
Then how does it work? Or is it just like, I mean, I understand what is self, but like how does current proxy suddenly work?
I have to.
Oh, you have to. Okay. Now we're talking.
Yeah. Sender. Like that.
Yeah.
The reason I'm putting it in self is because it will live throughout the scope of the game, or the scope of the game object script. So as long as this script lives, all the variables in self will live.
Okay. So what happens now is like we have these two worlds, right? The bootstrap world, the level 1 world. When we're gonna load level 3 or whatsoever, it's gonna instantiate the third world.
Yep.
And as it finishes, and as you switch to the third world, you're gonna clean up the second world.
Yeah. So maybe, well, that's up to you really, how you want to do it. So you have full control. So let's say, for example, that you have the main, and you have the loader here, and it loads in the next level, and then when you're done with that, it loads this guy, and then kills this guy.
Yeah.
And then when you're done with that, it loads the next one and kills this one, and so forth. But there's nothing that prevents you from having multiple loaded at the same time.
Well, that's what happens if you forget.
Well, but it could be useful. Say, for example, that you have a large map and you go from one area to the next. And let's say that you have one proxy that loads this. Here is the screen. And this is a big level, and then you come to a point, and then you want to load the next part.
So all those open world MMO builders, that's how you do it.
Well, the thing here is that it's not a streaming thing. So you have to pay attention to. Okay, let's say that you hit the trigger and then you load the next part. You will need to cover this, because otherwise will have this one will just appear on the screen instantly. But
Fog of War and all that.
Yeah, but so let's say that you have you go into a cave or something, come out on the other side. Something that natural.
Let's not get that deep this time. We'll do it next time.
Yeah.
So anything else that you wanted to bring up today, because we're almost over time?
I think this is it. We have talked about how proxies work, how you can use them.
Why do you use them? How to clean up after yourself, which is important. Yeah. And how to not to clean up if you don't need that.
Exactly. And what I encourage people to do is to go through the color slide tutorial, because it's good to practice or build your own stuff with proxies. It takes a little while to get really comfortable with them. I can also show you that in the API reference you find them here. Here's collection proxy.
And these docs are up to date.
Yes,
and good.
Yes, they are. So here we have, like, for example, you have the load message, there's an init message, final, enable, disable. There's also an async load for asynchronous loading. And there's I forgot one. There's unload as well. So I should actually add here final, disable, and I'm going to need to unload it. Otherwise, it will still stay in memory.
Alright, disabled, just disabled.
Yeah. If I can actually skip.
Right, so final runs the final functions in the scripts.
Yep.
Disables the components pretty much.
So
they are not visible.
Yeah, exactly.
And then to kill, like to free the memory, you have to disable.
You unload. And the reason why you have to do it in 3 steps is because you might want to do things in between. you can skip those two if you want. If you just send and load, it will do all the other things automatically. So
okay, so that was the wizardry behind juggling with the memory.
Yeah.
And hope you like these episodes, our friends and passersby, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? So we need your feedback. We need your like. That's the like button. We need your whatever follow action. Do the follow action and tell us what you think and tell us what we're doing next.
Yeah. More questions, please.
That was easier than last time. I liked it actually.
Yeah, it felt much better because it's much more practical.
Yeah. You know what you're like, what exactly you're talking about. It's much easier. So.